For more than a year now, the Fox 9 investigators have been trying to get to the bottom of what happened at a charity event that led to the demotion of 2 Metro Transit police officers.
But what the Fox 9 investigators found has really led to more questions about ethics, rules, and good intentions. Here's Tom Lydon.
On a Saturday afternoon,
a full bucket goes on every tree.
The Northside Bulldogs are learning what it means to give back.
Here it is.
Volunteering for Seeds to Harvest, a coalition of nonprofit community groups. Brooke Blakey is one of their mentors.
I'm going to the little tree.
And if her name sounds familiar, maybe it's because she's the new director of neighborhood safety for the city of St. Paul. Or perhaps you remember her late father, Art Blakey, the longtime State Fair police chief. His daughter would become the first African-American woman to join the Metro Transit Police Department.
Being black and blue, it's difficult to be part of something but not be a part of it.
She created the Homeless Action Team to work with the most vulnerable on the transit system, and in 7 short years rose up the ranks to become captain and chief of staff. That is, until a Seeds to Harvest event a year ago at the Northside YMCA that derailed her law enforcement career.
To be attacked in this sense of I stole or took something from an organization is totally untrue.
With her attorney present, Blakey is talking for the first time about what happened.
Metro Transit Police Department was one of the many participants within the community that had reached out about bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community and having presence during and after George Floyd. And so my Homeless Action Team and officers from Metro Transit were present.
She was on duty that day when Comcast had donated 100 laptops and backpacks to kids participating in Seeds to Harvest, including Blakey's own daughter. Another Metro Transit cop, Sergeant Sidney Jones, was there as well. Both their kids got Dell laptops worth about $250 each. But someone, Blakey believes another Metro Transit cop, filed an anonymous complaint accusing both cops of taking gifts.
There's this investigation saying that you violated the gift ban, department ethics. What do you make of that?
Individuals within the department just really did not appreciate my involvement. And I think that this was an opportunity for them to find a loophole in a policy and attack me on it.
After almost a year of trying, the Fox 9 investigators obtained some of the public records related to the internal affairs investigation. 3 days after the event, Blakey and Jones were put on administrative leave. The investigation found Blakey and Jones violated the department's code of conduct and ethics rules forbidding acceptance of gifts or favors by taking laptops intended to benefit underprivileged Northside kids when neither officer lived on the North Side. Blakey was demoted from captain and chief of staff, the number 2 person on the force, all the way down to officer. Sergeant Sidney Jones was suspended for a month and also demoted to officer.
Was this a program for underserved youth, or was it a program for all kids?
It was a program for all youth. The North Side gets a bad rap of always lumping kids into saying that they're, underserved or needy or underprivileged, and I think that that's a stigma that gets placed upon them. But
organizers of Seeds to Harvest tell Fox 9 Metro Transit never reached out to them, that while the laptops were meant to bridge the digital divide, they were meant for kids of all economic and social strata, calling the entire investigation a hatchet job.
My character was basically assassinated, and I think the purpose of that was to soil my name and make it difficult for other opportunities to be presented.
The timing last fall was critical, she says. Metro Transit Police Chief Eddie Frizzell was in limbo, waiting to be confirmed as U.S. Marshal, wanting to steer clear of controversy. Blakey had considered throwing her hat in for the chief's job.
One of the things I've really have struggled and wondered about is, where was Chief Eddie Frizzell in all of this?
I think you have to ask Chief Frizzell that question.
If I could.
Blakey's attorney.
He was covering his own butt. He was on his way to the U.S. Marshal's office, and Blakey was just a casualty of his interest in self-promotion.
Do you think this is racism?
I do. I think it's racism and I think it's sexism. And I think it's difficult for African American women to rise in the ranks of law enforcement, and that it's intimidating.
I think Ms. Blakey is being very careful, but I'm going to speak more frankly about it. They didn't want a Black woman on top. And they wanted to make sure that while Chief Frizzell was on his way out the door, that she was ineligible to apply.
Blakey came back to Metro Transit in December as an officer, but resigned 2 months later to take the job in St. Paul.
Only my child.
Perhaps most telling, Blakey and her daughter are still involved with Seeds to Harvest. Blakey says this work, connecting kids to communities, is just too important to stop. She just never thought giving back could mean losing so much. For the Fox 9 investigators, I'm Tom Lydon.
You should know that both laptops were returned to Seeds to Harvest. We reached out to the former Metro Transit chief, Eddie Frizzell, who through the U.S. Marshal's office, but they declined our comment.